Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on the Listen Up Girl podcast. Before I get started, I wanted to remind you all that I have put out an audience survey and I would love to have your help filling this out. It takes less than 10 minutes and it really kind of helps me think about ways I can improve my podcast, both this podcast, Listen Up Girl, and my other podcast, Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay, because I'm thinking about doing another podcast and I have all these ideas, but I really would love to get some feedback from you. So if you could just take a minute, go to the description of this podcast and go in and just fill out the survey, I would really, really appreciate it. But you were tuned in to Listen Up Girl, and I'm your LGBTQ plus newscast host, and I bring you the latest stories that matter from human rights and politics to global pride and beyond. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman, and let's get into today's top stories for Tuesday, November the 4th. Trump administration targets nonprofit workers' student loan forgiveness. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but Donald Trump's Department of Education has announced a controversial new policy that could block workers at LGBTQ plus nonprofits from qualifying for student loan forgiveness. The rule is set to appear in Federal Register tomorrow, gives Education Secretary Linda McMahon authority to exclude certain government and nonprofit organizations from the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program if they don't align with the administration's agenda. Advocates say the policy is designed to target LGBTQ plus and civil rights groups like Lambda Legal and the ACLU, which defend access to gender-affirming care. The move builds on Trump's earlier executive order that barred loan forgiveness for workers at groups accused of aiding what administrators call illegal immigration or child abuse, language that includes providing gender-affirming healthcare. This is a direct, unlawful attack on nurses, teachers, first responders, and public service workers, said Democracy Forward and Protect Borrowers in a joint statement. Congress created PSLF to support people who serve their communities. This rule is a craven attempt to punish dissent. Since its creation in 2007, the PSLF program has helped thousands of public service workers erase student debt after 10 years of payments. But critics warn that under this new rule, thousands of LGBTQ plus nonprofit employees could lose that lifeline. Next, over anti-trans bills have been introduced in 2025. And this year alone, 1,500 anti-trans bills have been introduced across the United States. Of those, 122 have passed and 382 have failed, according to the Trans Legislation Tracker. From bathroom bans and healthcare restrictions to drag performance limits, advocates say this wave of legislation represents the most aggressive attack on transgender rights in U.S. history, a coordinated effort to erase trans visibility and access to care. Next, immigration equality fights back amid Trump's anti-refugee policies. President Trump's second term has seen sweeping crackdowns on immigrants and refugees, and LGBTQ plus asylum seekers are among those hardest hit. On his first day back in office, Trump ended the U.S. refugee admissions program and slashed the annual refugee cap from 125,000 to just 7,500. Many who had already been approved for relocation were left stranded. But groups like Immigration Equality continue to fight back. For decades, we've seen clients arrive with nothing but hope and fear and walk out with safety and freedom, said the communications director, Antonio Chavez. It's just becoming harder to fight, but we're still here every step of the way. The group currently handles more than 700 active cases, training thousands of lawyers nationwide to represent queer immigrants pro bono. Next, we go to Argentina, marches for pride, rising hate. Tens of thousands of people filled the streets of Buenos Aires this weekend for Argentina's 34th annual Pride March, rallying under the slogan against hate and violence, more pride and unity. The demonstration came in direct response to right-wing President Javier Milei, whose administration has dismantled gender equality and programs, dissolved the national and anti-discrimination body INADI. Since Milanese remarks in Davos calling feminism and gender rights child abuse, hate has risen sharply, said Amnesty International Maria Paula Garcia. The government legitimized violence and bigotry. Participants marched from Plaza de Mayo to the National Congress, waving rainbow flags, dancing, and demanding justice. Among the supporters was pop icon Dua Lipa, who sent a video message of solidarity to the crowd. Next, you have Lufthansa accused of outing gay couple to Saudi government. Lufthansa faces a lawsuit after allegedly outing a gay couple to Saudi authorities, an act that could have cost one of them his life. The couple, who had lived secretly in Saudi Arabia for decades, says Lufthansa employees at the airport mocked and publicly exposed their marriage before their flight to San Francisco. Weeks later, the Saudi government updated one man's profile to married, confirming the airline had disclosed their private information. Because homosexuality remains punishable by death in Saudi Arabia, the man has not returned home since. The Ninth Circuit Court ruled that the lawsuit can proceed in the United States. Lufthansa declined to comment, citing ongoing litigations. Next, California redistricting could bring another LGBTQ plus member to Congress. A new redistricting measure in California, Proposition 50, could reshape political representation for the LGBTQ plus community. The measure, expected to pass in Tuesday's special election, merges part of Riverside and North San Diego counties, creating more competitive district that includes Palm Springs, a longtime LGBTQ plus hub. Several out candidates, including bisexual San Diego Council member Marnie Von Wilpert and gay attorneys Drew Dixit and Curtis Morrison, are to unseat Republican Congressman Darrell. A win could bring California's LGBTQ plus representation Congress back up to 3 or even 4 if Senator Scott Wiener runs for Nancy Pelosi's soon-to-be vacant seat. Has filed a lawsuit to block redistricting, calling it unconstitutional, but the case was dismissed last week, with Morrison calling it a desperate move from a panicked incumbent. And that's all for today's Listen Up Girl podcast, where we stay strong, stay informed, and speak the truth to power. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast and follow us on social media for more LGBTQ plus news and stories that matter. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud, and listen up, girl. That was gay.